I never wanted to be a hero. When I enlisted, it wasn't for glory, it wasn't for medals. I did it because I believed in my country, and because somehow I knew it was the right thing to do. My father always said that a man is measured by the battles he chooses to fight. And when war called, I answered. I was trained to be a sniper. It wasn't just about pulling a trigger. It was about patience, control, discipline. Every breath calculated, every movement planned. My rifle wasn't just a weapon. It was an extension of me. And at that time, in the peak of war, it was my only guarantee of making a home. But I wasn't alone. Beside me was someone I called a brother. We met in training. He was the kind of guy who made everything seem easier. Always had a joke ready, even when we were covered in mud, dragging our exhaustion for miles. He talked about his wife, about how he wanted to go back and build a life. I listened and wondered, would any of us make it back to see that happen? With that thought in mind, we marched to the front lines in Europe. The winter was cruel, snow covering the ground like a shroud, the sharp air cutting into our lungs. The Ardennes were a frozen hell. Every step sank into the soft snow. Every gust of wind felt like it was tearing a piece of our skin away. The forest, dense and silent, had enemy eyes. We knew they were there, and we knew that soon the silence would be broken. No one spoke about fear, but it was there, hovering over us like a ghost. I saw it in the eyes of the other soldiers, in my own thoughts, and in those hours before battle, when the only thing left to do was pray, I held on to my faith, because in the middle of all that chaos, it was the one thing no one could take from me. The warning came with the biting wind of the early morning. Explosions in the distance, a muffled sound, like thunder announcing an inevitable storm. We all knew what it meant. They were coming. Our platoon took position. I crawled to a strategic spot, my rifle pressed firmly against my shoulder. The snow around me seemed to swallow the world in an eerie silence, a stark contrast to what was about to unfold. My eyes scanned the tree line ahead, searching for any movement. My heart pounded, my breathing steady. Inhale, exhale aligned the sights. Then it happened. The first shot came from the enemy's side, shattering the stillness of the forest. Within seconds, the sky was filled with fire and steel. Screams, explosions, the acrid scent of gunpowder, and churned earth mixing with the bitter cold. I saw shadows moving between the trees, figures carrying rifles, advancing toward us. My finger pulled the trigger. The familiar recoil of the rifle, the sharp crack cutting through the chaos around me. One enemy down, then another. There was no time to hesitate, no space for doubt. Every shot had to count. Every second was a difference between life and death. In the midst of it all, I saw him, my best friend, just a few meters away, shouting orders, holding the line. He had always been like that, steady, unwavering, as if nothing could shake him. He turned for an instant and our eyes met. 1 second, just 1 second. Enough for a quick smile to flash across his face, as if saying, "We're in this together." Then the world collapsed. An explosion hit just meters away, sending snow and dirt flying. My body was thrown backward, my ears ringing, my vision blurred. I blinked, trying to regain focus, and then I realized he was no longer there. I looked up and saw his body on the ground, motionless. My stomach twisted, my chest tightened, as if something was being ripped away from me. Shouts all around. The battle was still raging, but for a moment, nothing else mattered. Only the weight of that scene before me. Everything around me felt distant, as if time had slowed down. The cold no longer mattered. The sound of explosions was muffled, and all I could see was him lying there, not moving. I crawled to him, ignoring the bullets whizzing past my head. My hand trembled as I grabbed his shoulder, tried to turn him over. His uniform was covered in snow and mud, and then I saw it, the blood, a deep, vivid red, far too bright against the white snow. "Stay with me." My voice barely came out, almost a whisper. His eyes were open, but empty. I had seen that look before, many times, but never like this. Never with someone who meant so much. Someone shouted my name. I don't know who it was or where it came from. I should have kept fighting, should have moved back to a new position, but at that moment, nothing else made sense. How could he have been right there, standing next to me just minutes ago, and now he wasn't? My fingers clenched his jacket, as if that could bring him back. And then I felt a firm grip on my shoulder. One of our own was pulling me back. We have to go. Now. I wanted to stay. I wanted to protect him, as if he still needed me. But he didn't anymore, and there was nothing I could do to change that. I was dragged back to cover. I hit the ground, took a deep breath, and lined up my sights again. I wanted revenge. My heart screamed for it. My vision blurred for a moment, whether from the cold or the rage. I didn't know. The rifle shook in my hands. And then I took a deep breath. That wouldn't bring him back. No bullet in the world could do that. But I was still here. And if I stopped, if I gave up in that moment, then everything he had done would have been for nothing. So I swallowed the pain and pulled the trigger. The battle was over, but the war inside me was just beginning. We stayed in the Ardennes for days after the attack. The cold felt crueler, or maybe it was just me. I couldn't feel anything anymore. The other soldiers talked, ate, tried to move on, but I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That last second when we looked at each other before the explosion. Did he know? Did he feel anything? Did it hurt? I should have done something. Maybe I could have pulled him back. Maybe I could have seen the enemy first. Maybe. But war is not made of maybes. I started distancing myself from the others. Silence followed me, but it never gave me peace. At night, I would lie awake, staring at the dark sky, waiting for God to give me an answer. I had always believed everything had a purpose. I had always had faith. But in that moment, I couldn't understand why. Why him and not me? The guilt weighed on my shoulders heavier than any gear I had ever carried. I relived that day over and over, searching for a different outcome. But the truth was unchangeable. I was here, and he was not. One night, while I was cleaning my rifle, one of the soldiers sat down beside me. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he simply spoke. He wouldn't want to see you like this. I looked at him but didn't respond. None of us chose to be here. But we are, and we have to keep going. For us and for them. I wanted to believe those words. I wanted to feel like there was still a purpose, that the war hadn't taken everything from me. But I still didn't know how to carry that weight without being crushed by it. That night, I prayed. I didn't ask for answers. I didn't ask to forget. I just asked for the strength to keep going. The days dragged on. War didn't wait for anyone to heal, didn't allow time for grief. We had to keep marching, surviving, fighting. But something inside me had changed. Before, I fought for my country, for duty. Now I fought for him too. Every time I raised my rifle, I remembered his words, his stories about going home, the way he laughed even in the worst moments. He wanted to live. And somehow, I felt like I had to carry that desire with him. The winter grew harsher. We spent days in frozen trenches, waiting for the next attack. The wind cut through our skin like knives, and each breath formed small clouds of vapor in the air. The food was scarce. Sleep was nearly non-existent. But I was there, standing firm. I started getting closer to the other soldiers again. I saw in their eyes the same weight I carried. Losing someone in war reminded us of how fragile we were, but it also made us brothers. One night, while we were on watch, one of the youngest in the group, barely out of his teenage years, sat beside me. "How do you do it?" he asked, his voice quiet. After everything that happened, I didn't have an easy answer. I looked up at the starry sky for a moment, then spoke. Because I have to, because he wanted to live. If I'm here, if God allowed me to continue, then I have to honor that. The boy fell silent, but I saw something shift in his face. Maybe it was hope, maybe just an attempt to believe that all of this had a purpose. And maybe that was what kept us going. It wasn't just orders, it wasn't just strategy. It was the fact that if we stopped, if we gave up, then everything our brothers had done would have been in vain. I still felt the pain, still carried the guilt. But little by little, I understood that carrying his memory didn't mean carrying a burden. It meant carrying a purpose. The war ended, but it never truly leaves us. We came back home, Each of us carrying our own scars, some visible, some not. When I stepped onto American soil again, I felt relief, but also an emptiness. I looked around and saw families waiting for their sons, wives embracing husbands who had made it back home. And I thought of him. I thought of the wife he always talked about, of the dreams he would never get to fulfill. A few weeks later, I went to his house. The door opened and there she was, her eyes swollen from crying, but still filled with hope. My chest tightened. What could I say? How do you explain that the man she loved, the one she waited for, wasn't coming back? But I didn't have to. She just hugged me, tight, as if trying to hold on to a piece of him through me. And in that moment, I understood I was his living memory. The war took many things from me, but it left me with a purpose. Since then, I have carried his story with me. I speak about him, about what he did, about how he died fighting for something greater than both of us. The guilt still comes, sometimes. But now, when I think of him, I don't just remember the moment he was lost. I remember the moments we had, the laughter, the courage, the lessons he taught me. War changes us. It tests us. It marks us. But it also teaches us. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that those who are gone never truly leave us. They live on in the stories we tell, in the values we uphold, in the strength we find to keep moving forward. And that is why I am here today, telling this story, so that he is never forgotten. Because, in the end, that is the true legacy of a soldier. If this story touched you, share your thoughts. Do you know someone who needs to hear this? Send it to them. Because stories like this should never be forgotten.